Hello and welcome to Ben the Nye Song of Ice and Fire podcast. I am Sir Matt, the Butt Knight.
And I am Sir Ezra, the Watchful. Welcome back to our part 4 of our Rhaenys Targaryen series. And remember, we're talking about Rhaenys Targaryen, the daughter to Rhaegar Targaryen. We've covered a lot of ground, so we went from her possibility of her being alive to her being Sarella Sand, to Sarella Sand being Alleras, the Sphinx at the Citadel. And now we're going to dive way down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, so this at this point we're really down the rabbit hole here, but just exploring a lot of options, to go all the way back to if Rhaenys Targaryen is Sarella Sand, what are some of the other things that being Sarella Sand means? So one of them would be also being Allras, right? That's a very commonly accepted theory. So now the only other really kind of theory I've thought we should kind of just explore here. Again, this one would not have to be true in order for her to be Sarella Sand, and Sarella Sand being Allras would at this point not necessarily have to be true, but is likely. So one of the things I've done in a lot of research on Reddit and the Song of Ice and Fire wiki forum, I should say, it comes up. A lot of people believe that Sarella Sand / Allras is also Quaithe, and so we said, okay, well, let's take a look at that possibility, and see, does it fit with our kind of thoughts here on her possibly being Rhaenys, tying it all the way back. So now we're at stage 4. Just exploring some of these other theories because, we think that she is Sarella Sand. And so would that fit with some other people's theories?
Yeah, and I think the first thing that kind of pops out to me, you think of Quaithe, we don't know who she is. We have no idea who Quaithe is or what her role is. Right. And we're going to talk about the nature of Quaithe and why that might, she might lend herself to being similar to Alleras, who is similar to Sarella and would be tied all the way back to Rhaenys, and why their interest and who they sympathize with all seem to be kind of connected and correlated. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the things that season 8 of Game of Thrones did not tell us at all is who is Quaithe. They just kind of dropped that theory. It was something we thought we might find out. She may come back. Obviously, she shows up. She's, a Shadowbinder from Ashai is kind of what we're led to believe. She's one of the 13 of Qarth. And she gives Dany some visions, some prophecy. So she definitely has a strong tie to Daenerys. So on that front, her strong tie to Daenerys would work if she were Alleras / Sarella Sand / Rhaenys Targaryen, right? There is certainly a reason for vested interest there. So just really quick here on who some people think that Quaithe is. So some people think Quaithe is Dany from the future. Some people think that Quaithe is Shiera Seastar, who was, you go back to Bloodraven, who was also the three-eyed crow / Raven in the show. They obviously didn't do any of that stuff in the show. So there's a lot of some people think she's Ashara Dane. So there's a lot of reason to believe that Quaithe is somebody or is going to tie back into some other be some character. So some people make the argument that Quaithe is Sarella Sand. So we're going to talk about that here a little bit. So some of the things that Quaithe does, Quaithe offers Dany advice, right? She gives her that prophecy to go, you have to go north, you must go south, go all of that stuff. And Dany sees her a couple of times. Now, the first time she sees her is in person, but the next 2 times she sees her, it's in really odd places, and it was almost as if she is being spoken to through glass or obsidian candles, which is where some people see that Marvin the Mage, Citadel, Alleras tie-in. Yep. Okay.
Yep.
And she talks about that, right? The glass candles are burning, which is interesting because then you tie into the Maester Aemon stuff when he's talking to Sam on the boat. The Sphinx is the riddle. Well, the Sphinx is also tied to glass candles, so there is definitely that. Now we've talked about the possibility of in parts 1 and 2 of Rhaenys Targaryen being Alleras and Sarella Sand. So you tie that in. Well, then just outside of the Dornish side of it, with Dany wanting to bring Dany back to help, possibly use her to take over and wage that war. We know in the show we do see Dorne align with Dany when Dany does finally come over, and we know in the books that's coming. Dany's going to come back over. Dorne does seem like a likely alliance because Dorne was with House Targaryen, and they certainly are no friends of the Lannisters, especially at this point. I mean, they're like in the books. I mean, they're Oberyn Martell was just killed, so they're definitely not friendly there. So there's definitely some reason to think that Dorne in itself would want to align itself with House Targaryen. So, but then you go a step further back to what we've been talking about with the possibility of Rhaenys. Well, Rhaenys, then you have that other strong tie-in of that's actually House Targaryen, kind of under a Dornish, disguise, wanting to help Dany. You tie into the possibility of the three heads of the dragon, right? Maybe we need 3 Targaryens. I mean, there's a lot. There's definitely a lot of rabbit holes you can dive down to get into all of these possible scenarios here.
Yeah, I think one of the big questions is why would a Shadowbinder from Ashai be interested in Daenerys? And you could say, well, it's just dragons. I mean, that's one of the things they say in A Clash of Kings is that they show up because they want to see the dragons and they're interested in that return to magic. A lot of times the priest and the priestesses from R'hllor are kind of showing Dany or they're talking about how magic is coming back and we're correlating that back to her dragons. So that's interesting. And then you look at Alleras, who is fascinated by dragons as well, and by the 3 heads of the dragon, and by glass candles and dreams. So all of that kind of, it seems as if when Quaithe appears to Dany that it's in a dreamlike state, sometimes like on the ship and things, and it is seemingly through a glass candle. And really, I think that's the strongest tie, right? You try to think back either where we know a glass candle exists is in the Citadel. And we kind of know that. We don't really know if who this Quaithe person is, where she calls home, or where that she's communicating. It's kind of set up with her communication. So we go based on what we know, and we try to tie that back to the Citadel in some way. And Alleras seems to make sense because Aemon Targaryen is that advisor who is saying the Sphinx is the riddle, not the riddler, and that's kind of where we're at. It is a little. It's a lot, and it's a lot. It's again at the very end of the rabbit hole, but I think It's interesting to think about, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's just another piece of the puzzle we wanted to take a look at. I mean, again, we're not at all saying this has to be true in order for, Alleras and Sarella do not even have to be the same person, the same people, and that may not be the case. It's pretty likely that's the case. We were saying ultimately that we think Rhaenys Targaryen could still be alive, and if she is, it makes the most logical sense for her to simply be Sarella Sand. But then, in order to make that work, we said let's take a look at 2 other one pretty commonly accepted theory, and another one that's a little bit looser, but certainly someone who you go look in the communities on Reddit and the A Song of Ice and Fire wiki, and just other questions that have been asked online of the possibility of, is Alleras Quaithe? And we said let's talk about that, as if she is, would that still work with our idea of Rhaenys being alive and possibly being Sarella Sand?
Yeah, it's again because Quaithe, when you look at the character of Quaithe, sympathizes with Dany. Why? It's just fascinating that she's there to help. There are multiple times where she is helping, and she's also giving her riddles. And we think about who is talking about riddles. They often say that Alleras is a riddle, or that the Sphinx is the riddle. It's even mentioned in the prologue to A Feast for Crows, A Feast of Crows, where it's mentioned multiple times that Alleras is speaking in riddles or something. So that all is just Quaithe being the ultimate riddle, right? Not knowing what's going on there.
Yeah, absolutely. So one I want to pull from here, this is like the original kind of question that I found, and this is from the forum of Ice and Fire. It's the Ice and Fire wiki, and this is from Lady Barber here. She asked just an important question that I was like, okay, well, I think this would be kind of a good place to look at, this. She says, are they the same people? And this is just talking about the Sphinx being Quaithe. So Alleras / Sarella being Quaithe. She says, the Sphinx is primarily known for 3 properties: a hybrid, a riddler, and a protector. And then she says, Aemon's dream on the ship talks of unlit glass candles, eggs that won't hatch, and the Sphinx is the riddle, not the riddler. She says Quaithe is the real supreme Riddler of the series. Dany is always trying to figure out her riddles. A tie-in here is that Dany thinks she sees Quaithe on board a ship, and it is on board of a ship that Aemon has his fever dream, right? And that they're talking about, there's a kind of similar things here. She says Sarella is actually, Alleras, is called the Sphinx. / Sarella has connections to Marwyn the Mage, who is somebody that we've done some Patreon episodes on that Sir Ezra is very intrigued by, and has connections to Ashai, Shadowbinding, and taught Mirror Mazder. That's where Mirror Mazder learns. She's also involved in the Great Game, according to Doran Martell, and her mother has a ship, so it's possible she could get around pretty easily. What's more interesting, though, is her conversations with Sam. They seem to eerily mirror Aemon's fever dream about unlit candles, unhatched eggs, in the same way that, they're said by Quaithe.
Yeah, that's fascinating. That's really fascinating. And a lot of times I think, too, when we first started talking about this, that it could even be that Marwyn is directing Alleras to make this communication.
Exactly.
And that he himself is going to go advise, but know that these communications are coming through Quaithe, and it's sort of set her up. And then, again, if Marwyn is able to answer some of the riddles or to help her in some way, and he already sort of knows that those phrases have been given to her, it might be a sign or an indicator that, yes, I should trust this individual. Right. And again, that might not go the way Marwyn wants it to, and that may be something that Dany sees through. But yeah, it's just I think that's a really interesting connection to make between what happens on the ship with Sam and Maester Aemon, a Targaryen, right, and then this connection to Alleras, and how that all correlates to what Quaithe is doing to Daenerys, who is a Targaryen.
Exactly. So, and if you really want that Targaryen kind of tie in there, you think of Shiara Seastar. Well, Shiara Seastar would tie into possibly, Blood Raven, which could tie into seeing things in the future and her being Quaithe. Okay, I get that. There's the Targaryen side of it, as well as defeat the others and that bigger side of it. But, if you go all the way back to where we kind of started here and just being like, oh, okay, I think that Rhaenys being Sarella Sand and / Alleras, and then also possibly being Quaithe, could make sense in the idea that, Quaithe provides this kind of advice. This is the Game of Thrones we're talking about. Everybody has an angle. Everybody has a reasoning for it. And Quaithe serves as this kind of almost protector to Daenerys. Well, if it's because she is also a Targaryen, you go all the way back to there, then I can definitely see the argument for that.
Yeah, for sure. And we're just trying to make all of those, connections between the Targaryens and between who would want to see the return of, a queen, or king, whatever, whether it be Aegon or Daenerys or whoever, who's interested in those people. And it all seems connected, and it seems, that Rhaenys, if she knows her origins and where she's from, and that she's in disguise and stuff, would be very sympathetic to Daenerys' cause.
Absolutely.
To her aunt's cause.
Absolutely. So, all right, guys, let us know what you think. With this part, we're really kind of down the rabbit hole. Thought we would just explore this angle as well, because there are definitely, we've had people tell us they think that Alleras is Quaithe and stuff like that. So we thought, hey, let's explore that as well to our bigger kind of part of the theory, which was parts 1 and 2. So let us know. Leave us a comment. Are we, what do you guys think? Who do you guys think Quaithe is? Who do you think Alleras is? Who do you think, where is Sarella Sand? Is Rhaenys alive? Is she not? And let us know what other kind of theories you guys want us to discuss. We could do it in a couple of parts. Just certainly it just depends on what the theory is. So, all right, guys, as always, thanks for watching, and remember that the night is dark and full of terrors.